Hi, Louise. Good to see you.
Hi, Sharon. Good to see you.
And well, I'm looking forward to, I guess, hearing a slightly different story today because we have a number of different marketeers in the group with varied backgrounds. And you've got a slightly different story, haven't you? So just for listeners, I will do a bit of a formal intro and then I'm going to hand over to you actually to give more detail about your background and how you came to work with Paul and the team. Yeah. So welcome, Louise. This is Louise Craig. Louise works with Paul Card Recruitment, which is a finance recruiter based in the Northeast. And I think you've been with Paul for probably just under 12 months now. Is that roughly?
Yes, so end of June it'll be a whole year. Yeah.
Hell, big celebrations then. So why don't you share with us then how it came about?
Yes, so like you said, it's a bit different to a lot of the other marketers. So I joined Paul Card Recruitment as a master's student on a placement. I'm happy to say now that I am a permanent member of the team. But yes, I started on a placement as it was part of my course. I am currently still studying as I've got a big research project to do. Okay. But it is great to know that I will be with Paul Card Recruitment for the foreseeable. Just another bit of background as well. Before being a master's student, I did work at a digital marketing agency that specialised in PPC and content creation. And I was there for best part of a year.
Ah, right. So longer than I hadn't realised you've been there quite so long. So, but that does figure actually when I think about some of the conversations that we've had as well over the course of the year. So, well, congratulations. It's fabulous to hear that you are permanently staying. And I am being selfish because that means that we get to still see you in as well. So, but I am really, really pleased for you. And I guess there's another story then that will no doubt lead towards the reason why, you and Paul both agreed that this is kind of like working and you want to continue. So let's maybe just go back though 12 months-ish. When you first joined Paul, so you'd already got some digital sort of agency experience in some specific areas. You've got this strong academic background and this MA that you're doing. And so you're on placement, but what was it like being, I guess, the first marketeer in a business? And I guess recruitment as an industry was new to you as well. So what was that like?
It was quite challenging. Like you said, being the first marketer in the business, there was almost no processes put in place. For example, processes to make certain marketing activities easier for me, such as setting up all of our sequences, email sequences, and creating like a social media content plan. So I would have to try and set those up whilst actually doing the job. And then, as you mentioned, the recruitment industry was completely new to me. I had to learn about Paul Card Recruitment's target markets and what those audiences want to see and want to read. At the agency, I did write some very short blog posts for a recruitment agency, but it didn't really prepare me for what I have been having to do and what I've had to learn. So that was a big challenge.
And I mean, of sounds like there's a number of challenges there, and it's not surprising. It's almost like setting up a completely new function within a business. And, that there's an awful lot involved because what you're trying to do, as you say, is do the job while you're setting up all the systems and processes that will support you longer term. But there's still a job that needs doing today, isn't there? So, I mean, what would you say was the biggest challenge in those early, weeks and months?
I think it would be having the time to set these things up.
Right.
And learning at the same time.
Yeah.
Like I said before, and like you've said, there is a job that needs to be done like on the day, but you've also got to think of yourself further down the line and how you can make it easier the next time.
So when you were thinking then about I guess setting up those systems and the longer term, what was it, let's say, if you're thinking that there was a particular marketing problem that Paul the MD saw that he had in the business, which led him to wanting to bring yourself in, what was the big problem that you were looking to solve for the business from a marketing point of view, would you say?
I'd say one of the main problems that we were looking to solve was how can we keep in contact with our clients and candidates, making sure we have various touch points with them, and having the systems in place and also the content in order to give them to do that. Because what we found when I joined was that existing customers, both clients and candidates, were potentially being neglected because without someone in the marketing function, or without having a marketing function at all, you've got the recruiters who are mainly business development, so they're focusing on their current vacancies and clients they're working with, and then finding new ones.
And so that recognition of, hey, we've got a lot of people that we have actually got relationships with, but if we don't do something with those relationships to keep people warm and keep front of mind, then we're not actually going to have those relationships in the future.
Exactly.
Got you. Okay. So just thinking then about, here you are doing a master's, you've got a year's experience in a digital agency, and you're working and continuing to study. So for you, when you think about being part of Superfast Circle, how have you found it's been helpful? Because somebody could say, well, hey, we've got a highly knowledgeable person here, somebody with experience. Why bother? Why bother joining something like Superfast Circle or being part of it? I'm interested to hear what you have to say.
So when I can join, the weekly calls are just invaluable. As the only marketer in a company, you can doubt yourself. And even when you do have the education there or the experience, so to join these weekly calls with your ideas, you have yourself, Sharon and Denise, or anyone else in the group to reassure you and say, yes, that's a great idea. Or other marketers in the group or other recruiters who say, yes, we do this and it works. And it's just that boost you need to go for it with your idea, or also it's just great for getting on ideas on how to solve a particular problem you're having, or to get a different perspective on something. So there's also a huge amount of value that the Superfast Circle brings in terms of resources. And as a marketer, you can think, you're usually naturally creative, you've got lots of ideas, and you think, well, I can write emails, I can create blogs, I can do this and that, but do you have the time? And especially as the only marketer in the team, And I think no matter how much experience or education you've got, you've only got a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
And as mentioned before, when you're the only marketer in the team, you're pressed for time.
Yeah.
Time poor, as you'd say.
Yeah.
And that's where the resources are invaluable, because it's there for you to use. But it doesn't take away the creativity, because you can still do so much with it and use your creativity with them.
Yeah.
And I suppose specifically in my case, we've mentioned before, I was new to the industry. I don't know the industry as well as yourself and Denise and other people in the group who are recruiters or have worked in an agency for years now. So pair the expertise with the convenience and ease of all the templates that you get. It's just so incredibly helpful, no matter what experience or education you have.
And it's great actually to as I reflect on how you've tapped into it, because I think in those early months we've had occasions, haven't we, because we have 2 calls a week. One call always seems to be more popular than the other, and there's been the odd occasion when you've almost had Denise and I to yourself, but you absolutely were there every single week in, week out. And it's really only, I guess, in the last few months where, I guess, as you've got different things in place, and I want to ask you about that, that you're able to kind of probably, your role's growing now, that, I guess you're using us in a way that's really targeted and specific, because you've got so much more knowledge and there's so much more in place. So we miss you, and it's great because it's looking at how this has never been something where someone should be here for forever, so but you're still making it work for you in an evolving way. So I mean, so it's coming up for a year. So when you reflect back, what have you now got in place as a result of some of the things that you've been mentioning, using the resources, and you talked about that lack of system and process. So what have you got in place now?
Well, so Superfast Circle provides something called a Reignite campaign. And for those listening who most likely won't know what that is, it's a 3-step email sequence designed to re-engage with lapsed clients and candidates. And so that was something that Paul had actually used before I joined, but probably not as much as he could have done, because of the fact that every single time we run one of these campaigns, usually with candidates, we get re-registrations, which is so important in the current market.
Absolutely, yeah.
And we also used the Reignite when we got word of a company that was making redundancies. So it's very versatile and a great way to re-engage, no matter what the situation was with the candidates. But it also was really good to not be so glaringly obvious about the intention behind contacting these candidates. So that's an example of the sequences that we've now got in place. They're already set up. We've got the merge tags in there so that we can just keep reusing them for different clients and candidates. So as that is an example, I think the sequences we've got set up have really helped solve that issue of keeping in contact with these customers.
Brilliant. I mean, for you, what would you say have been perhaps some of the other benefits? Because you wanted to set up sequences so that you could keep in touch with people, but what else would you say? I know you've talked about the resources, anything else that that you feel you've gained?
Yes, so sorry, but yes, well, recently we've actually gotten some reports printed, and that is using a report template from Superfast, which is something that I wouldn't have the knowledge and the experience and expertise to write myself, or the time at the moment. And having that template along with all of the others that we get each month, I've been able to edit that so it's relevant to our sector, which is finance, and actually get them printed, which I think, and we're in the process of sending those out, which I think will help us to stand out, because a lot of reports that I'm seeing now are digital, and it's quite rare that you get something sent in the post. So having these resources has allowed us to stand out a bit more to clients as we start to send these out.
I think it's I remember somebody once said to me, well, is it a not bit old hat, actually sending a piece of direct mail? Excuse me, but I think the reality is that because so few companies do it, as you say, you do stand out. And actually, I love getting something in the post these days.
I do.
Even if it's just kind of like, Majestic Wine or, whoever's sales brochure it is, it's, I look forward to it. So when you think then about, putting systems in place, you've talked about using email campaigns, using collateral, the template, getting that printed up and everything. You mentioned that when you run the Reignite campaign to candidates, that you get a series of candidates re-registering. What are some of the other results that you can share with us that you've been getting in the business?
So as well as the Reignite campaign, I've mentioned that there's so many resources that you get from Superfast. And I have mentioned the reports before. And speaking of the reports, not only do you have the physical report itself, but you also get an email campaign to send out to either clients or candidates. And especially with the client focused reports, I have something every month, sometimes more times a month, to send out to clients. And then that contact with that added value then gives our recruiters, Andrew and Paul, the perfect opportunity to ring that client up and have a conversation and ask them about what I've sent them through them, and then hopefully lead that on to bringing in a vacancy or just strengthening that relationship by picking up the phone. So that has really helped to build relationships with existing clients, but also new ones, because when we have that new relationship, they then are added into the campaigns to send these reports, and not just reports, blogs as well. So we're getting people to our website as well through email, and it just strengthens the whole marketing strategy and keep in touch strategy. And so that's been really beneficial.
That's great. I mean, and so that sounds like you've seen an increase in website traffic then on the back of that as well.
Yes. So we've also paired that with lead forensics, which we actually heard through yourselves as well. And when we're able to take people from our database to get them onto our website, we can see what they're doing on our website. And we can also get a lot more information from that. And yes, the traffic has increased. We can see when people are like clicking onto the links. And it's just given us a lot more information and data to move forward with like our strategy. And also when we're coming to get in contact with these clients, we know what sort of things they're looking at, what they're interested in. And it just makes that business development call or prospecting call so much easier for Paul and Andrea.
Yeah, that's. I mean, it's great to hear that you're getting a lot of value by the sounds of it from lead forensics. So that's a real plus. How about, because I know this is an area that you have spent, a lot of time and effort in terms of, building up your social media, your brand presence, because I think that was. I remember when Paul and I very first talked, which was a good few months before I think yourself joined, that he used a phrase that I do often hear, which is kind of like around, almost like being the best kept secret, really well known amongst the client base, but wanting to be known across a much wider sort of northeast geography, really.
Yes, so social media is something that I have had a big focus on. And again, the resources that you get from Superfast have been so important in helping me to build Paul Card Recruitment's brand, because I mentioned not only do you get the report, but you get an email campaign, but you also get social media shares. So again, it's just making your role as the marketer so much easier and faster to start building that brand awareness on social media. So I have all of these social media shares to pair with a blog on our website, a report on our website. And recently, Superfast has started to provide 30 days of social media, which is 30 social media posts. And it's not just the blog post shares or the report shares, it's also single posts standalone posts. It's just a different type of content that you can be sharing, and it just helps you to vary what you're sharing on social media. And not only that, you can take information from the other resources and turn those into posts. So I've been doing that on our social media, and it's just helped us to massively boost our brand awareness. Paul has been telling me that he gets loads of messages from people he knows saying, I see you all the time on social media.
Excellent.
And that's what you want. You want to be seen.
And I think,
as possible.
Because I know, Paul does quite a bit of networking anyway, but for people to actually take the time to send a message to say, you guys are all over the place. I mean, that's just really kind of like, great testament to, all the work that you've done. So, and also it's great to hear that you like and that you're able to leverage that additional 30 days of social media, because that was something new that we came up with. And we were aware that there's a variety of different topics and general areas of posts there. And the reality is that some of that may not fit with the brand. Every single one might not necessarily fit with the brand, etc. And it is our intention is again that if we can do some of that creativity piece for you so that you can spend more of your time implementing, and it's great, actually. I'm really pleased that you still feel, because you are a very creative person, that you still feel that you are able to inject creativity into the resources that you still have access to, and that helps. So
definitely.
I'm delighted though that you're getting that kind of feedback. I guess for me, the other thing that it makes me think about is that when Paul and Andrea are doing outbound calls, or they let's just kind of like say in that context of reaching out to companies and reaching out to individuals, that if there's that higher level of recognition now of Paul Card Recruitment, then hopefully what that does mean, and there's certainly other people have commented on this, is that the consultants seem to be able to get through to the people they're wanting to talk to that much easier.
Yeah, definitely. Because they know who you are and they've seen you, and that's what you want. you want
Absolutely.
the awareness first, and it just makes it easier for our consultants to make those calls.
Yeah. Now, so something I'm just going to ask you this anyway, because I realise that let's say beyond doing your MA, that this was I guess the first marketing role that you've done outside the agency role. So I appreciate that there's not huge amounts of comparison here, right? And it will be interesting to know how might being part of Superfast Circle and working with Denise and I have exceeded any expectations that you might have had?
Oh, where do I begin?
No.
I think it's fair to say that you've massively exceeded my expectations. I'm not. I think it's just because I didn't expect for a company like Superfast to give so much to its members.
Right.
I didn't know that a company like Superfast existed, really.
Yeah.
It's just so good, and you might think it's too good to be true, but it's not. It's true. It's just, I don't think that I would be able to not be a part of the Superfast Circle, and I'm hoping it doesn't get to a point where I'm not part of the Superfast Circle, because I've mentioned it so many times, the amount of resources that you get, they really are invaluable. And unless you've got a team of 5 marketers and they're all specialized in something, you just don't have the time.
Yeah.
You don't, and I challenge anyone to say otherwise, really.
Yeah. Unless they've got a team behind them, as
exactly.
you say. Yeah.
And not only that, you are safe in the knowledge that both yourself and Denise, you know what you're talking about, you know what you're doing, what you provide for us is quality, and we just need to make tweaks so that it's relevant to our industries and it's ready to go. And I just think I didn't expect to be able to get that from the group, because when I was in the interview process for working with Paul, he mentioned Superfast Circle and how it was like a sort of training membership. So that's, I guess, what I came into the role thinking that you were.
Yeah.
Be able to, coach and train me about the industry, and further develop my skills as a marketer. But I didn't realise just how much additional resources and help that you'd get, and the weekly calls. So I think is one of the main things that I think I get most value from, aside from all of the resources, especially in those first, probably, as you said, only up until the last couple of months. I was joining every week because of how valuable they were for me. Exceeded all expectations and continue to with everything else that you're adding for us. And
well, I mean that's great, and I think the thing is that when we have I think because we've got a growing group of marketers now who are really kind of like tapping into so many of the resources that at the same time Denise and I are learning from you guys and from the business owners that are in the group about what are those evolving challenges. It's been a sort of several years of massive learnings for all of us, hasn't it? As the market's changed, how recruiting's changed. So how do we market to people? That's constantly evolving. So I think the more members are participating with us, we get to learn what your challenges are. And also I think it's great that we get such good feedback in terms of content that you think would help your clients and your candidates. And so actually what we're able to do is, create content, the topic areas that are going to be really valuable and very current for everybody. There's always going to be that evergreen content in terms of recruitment, but then there's always that in the moment that's, now. This is ghosting, kind of like, is the one that comes to mind, the back end of last year, sort of like last quarter, the last quarter of last year is what I meant to say. Everybody was talking about the challenges of ghosting, and so we were able to very quickly, change our content plan and respond to that. So I think it's a mutually beneficial relationship, and I think that your role as a marketing person in a business, it's an ever-growing role. And you can get pulled into lots of different areas, and you are one pair of hands more often than not. You're one pair of hands, and so it's how do you leverage your time as much as possible and be as productive as you can. So I think the more we can keep coming up with those ideas, which there's so many, it's we will, I guess, evolve together as well. But yeah, no, it's great to hear you say that. I suppose you mentioned about that's the support and the value of that you've gained from Denise and I. I mean, how do you think, just generally, perhaps, as a business, Paul Card Recruitment, it has some really strong values. In your experience, how does that align perhaps with what you've experienced from Superfast?
I think if I'm thinking about our values as a team, I think they align very strongly. We often talk about how no question is a stupid question, and you definitely get that as part of the Superfast circle. When you're joining the calls, questions are encouraged, and it's that saying, no question is a stupid question. And it's just that support that, if you have a question and you need answers, then ask it, and we're here to help.
Absolutely.
And that's the same within our team. So it's always great when you get that from somewhere else, especially where you need it, because you go to these calls because you have a question or you've got an issue that you're facing. So to be met with that attitude that, ask away, it's just brilliant. And another thing within our team is about helping each other achieve our goals. And it's not just business goals or career goals, it's like personal goals as well. And I've seen that within the circle. Of course, it's heavily focused on your business goals, and because that's what it's all about at the core. But I have seen a few times when it's about the people as well, and not just what their goals are for the business, but what their goals are in their personal lives sometimes. And it just adds to that support system that the circle is for you as a member of it. And it just reminds us all that we're human and not just money making machines within the business.
I mean, you sort of you've touched on that sort of I guess that development area. So just one question before my penultimate question. As someone who is still studying, as you mentioned earlier, how would you, let's say, just summarize how being part of the circle, working with Denise and I, how do you feel that has contributed to your ongoing development?
Well, I think a lot of people agree that, education, it gives you the theory and helps you with your understanding of concepts within marketing. But the actual hands-on experience is often the most important.
Yeah.
And when working at Paul Card Recruitment, with it being a completely new industry and being the first marketer in the team, there was a lot to learn, and I was learning in the placement.
Yeah.
But being able to join the Superfast circle and come to the calls with the issue that I was facing that week, in those early days especially, is really helped, because it's pairing that sort of hands-on learning experience with the knowledge and expertise that yourself and Denise have, and other people in the circle.
Yeah.
And not only the other marketers in the circle, but the other business owners of recruitment agencies, because although they might be in a different sector, they've got knowledge of recruitment, and they're able to add their experience to my understanding of the industry, as well as Paul and Andrea. So in that sense, it's been really brilliant for my development, practically and actually as a professional, which is something that you wouldn't get with just education.
And I think sometimes, when I am talking to business owners, perhaps who are thinking of bringing a marketing person like Paul was when he and I first started chatting, that having access to a training platform that is recruitment specific is quite unique as well, because there's lots of marketing training. You and I both know that you can spend your nights and your weeks and your months while away the hours on YouTube and stuff, and yet you've then got to go and test and play around with all that and work out how to adapt it all. Whereas I think people are really value just having a learning program that is, everything is just about recruitment. So yeah, that's great to hear. So let's say, in summary then, two parts to the question. What would you say to another marketing person who is considering, having a chat with their MD about investing in Superfast Circle and supporting them? What would you be saying to that marketing person as to why would you recommend Superfast Circle to them?
For many reasons. I'd recommend, because especially, I'll be repeating myself a lot, but especially if you're the only marketer in the team, no matter your experience, you really can't do everything. And they're probably feeling a bit of pressure from their MD to do as much as possible for the business in terms of marketing. And
often they want to as well.
Because, well, it's also new to the business owner, this whole world of marketing. And so when they've brought someone in, it's quite exciting. And like you said, you want to try and do everything. But the reality is you physically can't do everything. So that's where the support that you get from Superfast and the resources that you get and the coaching and the training is just so invaluable. It makes your job easier, but it doesn't take away your creativity, because, as I mentioned before, I feel it doesn't take away my creativity. When I'm posting something, I get to come up with the image that goes with it. I love doing that. And so I'm really grateful to Superfast for allowing me to do what I love about the role. And that's what you get from it. It gives you resources to allow you to focus on the bigger picture and what you really love about marketing. And it just shows how all of the resources that you get from the circle helps you to build that strategy.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've really wanted to focus on, is what is the strategy?
Yeah.
And the resources and the training and the coaching just helps you to think about the strategy now. After what you've learned and all of the resources that you have, then you can all put it together.
Yeah.
So definitely, I would definitely recommend it to another marketer.
And so I guess, the flip of that is, having had the experience that you've had in the last sort of 10 to 12 months, and I know that you work really closely with Paul, and he's kind of like very passionate himself about marketing. But if there was a business owner who, whether it's they have a full or a part-time marketing person, and they're already investing in that person, and here I come along and say, well, invest a bit more. What would you say to that business owner, with, I guess, the experience that you've had? Because it would be interesting to, get a marketeer's perspective on that.
Well, I think once again, to a business owner, the marketers are going to need some support at some point. Not just with resources and training, but marketers are usually, are creative people, and they need to bounce ideas off of others.
Yeah.
And they also need different perspectives and the experience from other creative people to improve themselves and their ideas. And unless you're a business owner who has got a lot of experience in marketing, you aren't going to be able to provide that for them. And you're only going to get that from a business like Superfast, where you not only have the expertise of Sharon and Denise, but you have a big group of members who all have different experiences with marketing.
Yeah.
And for the business owner, it's also reassuring that the ideas and strategies that your marketer is putting forward to you have the support and guidance from Sharon, Denise and others in the group. I think that's something that, from my experience, I've noticed with Paul, is even he himself is the one who says, "Why don't run that by Sharon and Denise in the circle?" So he sees the value that your expertise and your guidance has for me and my ideas.
Yeah.
And then what differentiates Superfast Circle from the marketer just joining maybe a free group on social media is the resources, the training and the coaching that they will receive as part of one membership to the Superfast Circle. So I would recommend to business owners to definitely consider.
Fantastic. And thanks for sharing that, because I haven't asked any of the previous marketeers that last question, and it is interesting to hear that perspective. So listen, I'm mindful of time. Really appreciate today's conversation. I think you've made some fantastic points, and I am super delighted that we are going to get to still continue to work with you as well. So congratulations once again on your permanent contract.
Thank you.
I look forward to seeing you you're on holiday next week, aren't you? So I'll see you in a couple of weeks on a call. So listen, thanks again, and talk soon.
Speak soon. Thank you.
Take care.
You too. Bye.